From starring as a super handsome private investigator in Magnum P.I. to his hilarious role in Three Men and a Baby, Tom Selleck has had an amazing career, except for that one movie where he got a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. During his decades-long career, the actor has been in many movies that were massive hits and made a lot of money. And while he has experienced success, he also has been a part of some movies that didn't do quite as well at the box office. A movie from 1992 called Folks was widely called just plain stupid and has a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Can you imagine? His first major role in a movie was as Myra Breckenridge. He got the part after being asked to come to the set, securing the role just for being his glorious self. In 1965, he first showed up on TV on The Dating Game. He also had small parts in the movie Coma and The 7 Minutes. He was also the face of Pepsi-Cola. Iconic, right? Most of his meteoric rise to fame can be traced back to the 1980s TV show Magnum P.I. He crushed it as a private investigator.
Don't look at the dogs, work the lock. Work the lock, work the lock, don't look at the dogs.
While he played Thomas Magnum on the show, the producers wouldn't let him try out for other roles. He didn't get the part of Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark because of this. Doesn't that seem like the worst decision ever? I mean, I love Harrison Ford as Indy, but Selleck would have been just as great. He also turned down the lead role in Baywatch because he didn't want to be seen as a sex icon. Failed at that, though. The part went to David Hasselhoff instead. He did go on to star in 2 movies, though.
Baywatch, I thought, do I really want to do another show like this?
In Runway, he was a super amazing detective, and in Three Men and a Baby, he was the father figure that we all wished we had. This movie was one of the biggest movies of the time, and made a boatload of money. He went on to do another movie soon after. In An Innocent Man, he went back to his roots as a criminal after being in the romantic comedy Her Alibi. The 1990s were a good time for Selleck's career. He was in Christopher Columbus, The Discovery, In and Out, and The Love Letter. He made another big splash on TV when he played Richard Burke, Monica Geller's older boyfriend on the super iconic TV show Friends.
Oh my God, I'm going out with Eric! Oh, this day is really going to be so much better than I thought it was going to be. Oh.
His character, an eye doctor who just got divorced, was friends with Monica's parents. Theirs was a very beautiful relationship, and it broke everyone's heart when it didn't work out. For me, it's Mondler all the way. But Richard will always have a very special place in my heart. He even made some cameos after the two broke up on the show. Selleck then made his way back into mainstream media playing Frank Reagan on the CBS show Blue Bloods. With such an awesome career, you wouldn't believe that he started a movie that was such a flop.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Wow, right?
Well, that might just be the understatement of the decade. His 1992 movie, Folks, sucked. Like I said before, during the 1990s, he made his way into many movies. Most of them did well at the box office and with critics, but one was a critical and financial failure. It was so bad that no one ever liked it, ever. There are people out there who genuinely like 365 Days, but not Folks. In it, Selleck played John, a rich businessman whose life is turned upside down when his dementia-stricken father moves in with him. The main character gets hurt and things go from bad to worse in his life. His father had been talking incoherently, but it turns out that he had made a lot of money on the stock market a few years ago. They used this money to buy a mansion. The movie only made $6 million around the world, but it cost $15 million to make, so it was a financial failure. It got terrible reviews from critics all over the world.
I was scared to death. I had done a Taxi a long time before, but I hadn't done.
Colette Maud, a critic for Time Out, said it was the kind of stupid comedy that Koltoff and Weekend at Bernie's writer Robert Klein liked to make. The movie was so bad that Selleck was nominated for a Razzie Award for Worst Actor. Yikes! The movie's plot sounds like it would be better suited for a single episode of a sitcom. It was an entire movie that was just about ill-advised ageist humor.
Well, it was weird for me because I didn't work a lot in my 20s when I was 25,
It was supposed to be a comedy, but it is a 100-minute insult to and joke about senior citizens. To put it simply, people didn't find it funny because there's nothing funny about senile dementia. Fortunately for Selleck, it didn't ruin his career, although it could have. Some other actors can't say that they're as lucky, like Lucy Liu in Ballistic X vs. Sever. If you haven't ever heard of this film, that's okay. It got a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes too. It was one of Warner Brothers' first major flops. It's pretty hard to understand why anyone would put $70 million into a complicated, crazy spy thriller with Antonio Banderas and Lucy Liu. Well, let me answer that. Banderas was at the top of his game back then because of The Mask of Zorro.
Is this the real Zorro costume?
This is the real Zorro costume.
Wow.
Except...
And Liu was riding the Charlie's Angels fame train. No matter how much money was spent on advertising, the movie didn't impress anyone. It became the worst movie ever right away and has kept that title since then. Another actor had a really bad hand dealt to him, John Travolta in Gotti. After its limited release, it didn't take long for this John Gotti biopic to be called the worst mob movie of all time.
In that less than ideal IQ way. She was saving my reputation because
the film was boring. There weren't any funny parts in this movie, other than that one scene where Travolta's character Gotti slap fights his sons over a murder that happened during a bar fight. It's a movie made by people who don't know how to make movies, but for some reason, a famous actor was cast as the lead. The film was poorly edited and hard to follow. In a marketing campaign, the people who made the movie said that moviegoers would like it, even if movie critics don't. Spoiler, no one did. This movie marked the end of the singing and dancing of the Grease actor's career. He should have stuck to his strengths. A piece of advice that this next actor should have taken too: Jim Carrey in Dark Crimes. Most thrillers are about silly crimes, but this movie was about...
Can we be clear about that?
Yes.
Crimes as serious as heart attacks, and it was just as fun as that too. In the 1980s and 1990s, Carrey became famous for his slapstick acting in movies like Liar Liar and Ace Ventura. But a strange thing happened when he tried to make a serious movie instead of a comedy.
Oh. Sorry.
He shared his deepest thoughts and feelings, which shocked people with how much emotion he could pull from himself.
Most call me Quinn. Say hello, Tinky.
Pleasure, Tinky. Corvus Corax, common raven, smart.
We saw a lot of hope, but it was snuffed out right in front of our eyes. In Dark Crimes, the comedian followed a rabbit into a dark anti-wonderland where he investigates...
I know it was you.
...a cold case murder. Even though the premise was interesting, the movie was a terrible waste of time. It confused suffering with drama and foreshadowing instead of a traditional plot. The movie's plot and cast were all so interesting that you would want to root for them, but a few minutes into it, you'd want them all to die.
Planting the dope was a dumb idea, Tarek. You're the last honest cop in Poland.
The 0% score for the film wasn't a sign of indifference or boredom. Instead, it shows how uncomfortable and dull the movie was. It's meant to warn people not to waste their time, especially if they love the comedian and his movies. That's all I have on Tom Selleck's worst movie, which got a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.